I've always loved the quiet hour just before sleep, when the world softens into a gentle blur and the edges of things fade like watercolors in the rain. Tonight, I'm lying on my back, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the day settle softly onto the floor. There's a hush in the air, like the world itself is exhaling, and I imagine myself floating somewhere far from city lights, where stars flicker like shy candles. Somewhere, far below, the ocean stretches endlessly, silvered by moonlight. I can almost hear it breathing, slow and deep, rising and falling in rhythm with something invisible. It makes me wonder, who or what whispers to the waves? What pulls the ocean's skin, gentle yet persistent, in a dance that has been going on for billions of nights? Tonight, I want to follow that whisper. I want to trace the delicate hand of the moon as it reaches across the sky and reaches deep into the water. I want to drift into the science of tides as if it were a lullaby, feeling the pull of gravity like a soft, guiding hand on my shoulder. The moon feels like a secret companion to the earth, always watching, always guiding, never speaking, but somehow telling a story older than any bedtime I've ever known. And as I close my eyes and let the imagination stretch, I realize that the ocean, with its vast quiet rhythm, is listening to the moon, just as I am, just as I always have. I take a slow breath, letting it settle into my chest, letting the curiosity drift through me like a small boat carried by gentle waves. Tonight, I'm going to sail along those waves, following the moon's soft signal, and maybe, just maybe, I'll understand a little more about the invisible threads that connect the sky and the sea, the seen and the unseen, the waking world and the one that waits for me in dreams. I imagine myself standing at the edge of the sea. It's night, and the air is cool enough that I feel the faintest shiver along my arms, though not enough to make me want to leave. The sand beneath my feet feels damp and soft, like the earth itself is still breathing out the warmth of the day. Each grain presses lightly against my skin, and the ground seems alive, as though it remembers every wave that has ever touched it. The ocean stretches before me in a vast sheet of silver, shimmering beneath the light of the moon. I've always found something endlessly calming about the horizon, how it refuses to end, how it invites my thoughts to wander past the point my eyes can reach. Tonight, the surface of the water ripples with a rhythm that feels older than language, as if the ocean itself is humming a lullaby I've always known, but never quite heard until now. The moon hangs above it all, pale and patient, watching. It feels almost alive, not in a loud way, but in the way an old friend sits beside you without saying a word. I tilt my head back and take it in. That familiar white circle, glowing softly through the thin veil of drifting clouds. I can't help but think about how many people have stood exactly where I am on some coastline, in some forgotten moment, looking up and feeling this same quiet pull. The tide is moving, though it takes me a while to notice. At first, it feels like nothing at all, just water playing at my ankles. But then I see it, the ocean drawing back, inch by inch, as though it's inhaling. The wet sand glistens where the water has slipped away, shining like liquid glass. I wait, and after a while, the water returns, crawling forward with soft, foamy fingers that wrap around my toes before retreating again. There's something hypnotic about this cycle. Back and forth. Give and take, retreat and return. It feels less like water and more like breath. I close my eyes and let myself imagine the ocean as a living being, vast, ancient, breathing in the rhythm of the moon. I wonder if the ocean feels it, the way I sometimes feel my heart respond to music without meaning to. The way certain songs seem to tug at me, pulling me into their current. Does the sea know that it's listening to the moon? Does it feel guided, comforted, nudged forward and back by an invisible hand? I kneel down and let the waves touch my fingertips. They're cool, but not cold, brushing over me like silk, leaving behind little trails of salt that sparkle faintly when I lift my hand toward the moonlight. The night air is quiet except for the sound of water, and even that doesn't feel like sound so much as it feels like motion. Every crash, every ripple is softened by the night until it blends into the silence around it. In this moment, I'm small, but not in a lonely way. More in the way a star is small among galaxies, still shining, still part of something vast. There's comfort in being small here. Comfort in knowing the ocean doesn't need me to be big. It just needs me to listen. And so I listen. The tide creeps higher now, and I realize the ocean is swelling forward, pulled into place by something I can't see. It's like watching a conversation between sky and sea, where words aren't spoken but felt. The moon calls, and the ocean answers. I take another slow breath and let the thought settle in. Gravity. That's the thread tying them together. Not an invisible rope, not a chain, but a soft pull, steady and constant. I picture it as a whisper stretched across space, gentle but firm enough to move an entire ocean. I walk a little farther down the shore, my footprints dissolving almost immediately behind me. It's strange, but I find comfort in that too. The waves erase me, and in a way, that feels like a kind of belonging. As if the sea says, "Don't worry, you were here, but you don't have to stay. You're part of the rhythm now." The moon follows as I move, hovering above the shifting water, painting the world in shades of silver and soft blue. My mind drifts back to childhood, to nights when I would press my face against the window and watch the moon from my bedroom. I used to think it was following me. When my family drove at night, no matter where we went, there it was, riding along in the sky. It felt protective, like a watchful friend. Back then, I never wondered about tides or gravity. I only wondered if the moon could see me too. Now, standing here as an adult, I realize that both are true. The moon has always been there, and it has always been pulling, even when I wasn't aware of it. And that thought makes me smile in the dark. The ocean keeps shifting, and I notice how its edges glow with a faint white line of foam, tracing its movements as if someone is sketching it anew each second. The tide is a living clock. The hands move slowly, but they move with certainty. Each rise, each fall, marking time in ways we can feel but not always see. I crouch low and let my hand rest in the water again. This time, I don't pull away. I let the waves curl over my skin and then drift back, leaving tiny bubbles that cling for a moment before popping. My fingers feel sticky with salt, and I imagine all the stories dissolved in that water, the history of rain, the tears of rivers, the memory of glaciers. Every drop is older than me, older than every person I've ever known. And still, here it is, brushing against me as if I belong to its story, too. I look up at the moon again. It feels strange to think that something so far away has such a gentle yet powerful influence on something so close. Strange and also comforting. The moon doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply pulls, and the ocean, in its vastness, listens. The night feels heavier now, but not in a way that presses me down. More like a blanket. The stars above shimmer faintly, and I realize I've been walking for some time, tracing the shoreline, listening to the tide breathe. My steps are slower now, more deliberate, as if I've become part of the rhythm myself. I know I'll soon drift into the heart of the science, but for now, I'm content to just be here, standing in the soft in-between, between sky and sea, between thought and dream, between waking and sleep. The ocean sighs again, and I sigh with it. I sit down on the sand now, folding my legs beneath me. The damp grains cling to my skin, and for a moment I trace little circles with my finger in the shore. Each shape I draw disappears almost instantly under the brush of a wave, as if the ocean is playfully erasing my thoughts, reminding me that nothing here stays for long. The tide creeps in again. It feels deliberate, though I know it isn't thinking in the way we do. Still, I can't help but sense the intention in its movements. It's rising because someone has called it closer. And that someone is the moon. Gravity. That word drifts across my mind like a feather. I've said it so many times in school, in conversation, in thought. But here, by the ocean, it feels like something alive, something soft and constant, like a hand I didn't notice resting on my shoulder all along. The moon pulls on the earth. That much I know. Not just on the land, not just on me, but on everything. It doesn't grab or yank. It pulls in the way a quiet song pulls you in subtle, steady, without you even realizing it first. And because the ocean is liquid, it answers more dramatically than the land does. It stretches. It rises. It leans toward the moon, like a tide of longing, pulled across the skin of the planet. I picture the Earth not as a globe spinning in the dark, but as something alive, its oceans like breath, rising and falling in slow time. The moon circles, and with each pass, it draws the water toward it. Not all of it, not every drop, but just enough to shift the surface, just enough to sculpt the breathing pattern we call tides. What amazes me is how gentle it all is. The moon doesn't need to be huge to do this. In fact, compared to the Earth, it's small. But closeness gives it power. It's like sitting in a quiet room with someone you trust. Their presence matters more than their size. The moon is close enough that its pull is personal, intimate, enough to stir the oceans into motion. And it isn't just one tide. There's another, opposite the moon, on the far side of the Earth. That one happens because the Earth itself is being pulled, tugged slightly toward the moon, while the ocean on the far side lags behind. The result: two bulges, two great swells of water circling the Earth like heartbeat pulses. Wherever you stand, on a beach, on a rocky cliff, on a harbor dock, you're part of that rhythm. I close my eyes for a moment and imagine it. The Earth spinning slowly, the moon circling with patience, and the oceans stretching like soft blankets in two directions, pulled gently by the moon's invisible hands. Rise and fall, forward and back. It's not chaos. It's a choreography written in silence, performed without pause. It's strange to think that what feels like stillness, the quiet water at my feet, is actually part of something vast and unending. Right now, as I listen to the tide breathe, the same rhythm is echoing on distant shores I'll never see. A fisherman on a quiet coast in Japan. A child skipping stones in Portugal. A whale gliding under Arctic ice. We are all listening to the same signal, the same steady pull of the moon. And then I think of the sun, because the moon is not the only partner in this dance. The sun, too, pulls on the oceans. Its gravity is stronger than the moon's, but because it's so far away, its influence feels different. Together, the sun and moon weave tides into patterns, sometimes working as one, pulling the oceans higher in what we call spring tides, and sometimes working against each other, softening the pull into what we call neap tides. Even here, even now, the tide at my feet is not just a moon story. It's a duet. The thought makes me smile, because it feels less like science and more like music. A duet between sun and moon, written not in notes but in waves. Played not in a concert hall, but across the skin of the earth itself. I scoop a little water in my palm and let it trickle back down. Each droplet finds its way home, pulled by gravity, pulled by this same force that holds me here, that binds oceans to planets, planets to stars, stars to galaxies. The tide at my feet is not just a local phenomenon. It's a reminder of how connected everything is. Sometimes I think of gravity as a thread. Not a chain, not something heavy, but a thread of silk, invisible yet unbreakable. Every ocean wave is tugged along that thread, every star held in its path, every step I take pressed firmly into the sand. All of it connected. I tilt my head and watch the moon again. It looks so still, so unchanging, but I know it's always moving, always circling. And as it moves, the tides respond, not with suddenness, but with patience. It's a reminder that not all influence needs to be fast or loud. Some of the most powerful forces in our lives are the quietest, the ones we only notice when we stop and listen. The tide is higher now. The waves curl closer to where I sit, brushing the hem of my clothes. They whisper against the shore, and I swear, if I listen closely enough, I can almost hear them say the word gravity. Not in a textbook voice, not in numbers and equations, but in a lullaby rhythm, steady and soft. Pull, release, pull, release. For a while, I let the thought cradle me. I let the science become story, the story become feeling. The moon pulls. The ocean responds. And I, sitting here, am part of it all. The tide is touching my knees now, cool and steady, reminding me that time is passing even though I feel as though I've slipped outside of it. The ocean doesn't rush. It never hurries forward or backward. It moves with patience, with an ancient rhythm that has never faltered. That's what I want to follow now, not just the idea of tides, but the deeper patterns beneath them. I picture the earth turning slowly beneath me. One full rotation every 24 hours. The moon circling above, its orbit steady and sure. And the ocean stretched, pulled into two great bulges, one facing the moon, one away from it. As the earth turns, these bulges drift across the planet's surface, passing beneath coastlines, brushing against harbors, tugging at the sand where I now sit. That's why tides feel like breath. The earth is spinning through them, slipping through the pull of the moon's invisible hands. It's strange to think of myself as moving right now, even though I feel still. But I am. The earth is spinning me through the tide, just as it spins mountains and forests and quiet, sleeping cities. The tide at my feet is not only about the ocean rising. It's also about me being carried through the ocean's shifting shape. I'm part of the turning. I imagine looking at the earth from far away, floating high above in silence. I'd see the planet wrapped in blue, with two soft bulges of water swelling outward. They'd look delicate, almost invisible from space, but they are powerful enough to move ships, to shape coastlines, to carve bays and estuaries over centuries. These bulges are like the Earth's heartbeat, pulsing in time with the moon. The thought of it makes me pause. The moon has been here for billions of years, circling, pulling, whispering to the sea. And in that time, it has shaped not just water, but life itself. Long ago, in the ancient Earth, when the oceans were young, tides would have been stronger, more dramatic, because the moon was closer. Imagine that, great surges of water racing inland, retreating again, carving patterns in the sand, creating little pools where life could begin to take hold. Some scientists believe that these tidal pools, warmed by the sun and replenished by the ocean's rhythm, might have been cradles for the first forms of life. In that way, every tide we see today is not just a pull of gravity. It's an echo of creation. I find myself tracing lines in the sand again, this time not circles, but waves, long and curving, like the outline of a heartbeat on a monitor. The ocean has been a heartbeat for Earth all along. Not rushing, not slowing, just steady, just patient. And yet, tides aren't the same everywhere. Some places have dramatic rises and falls, waters lifting meters high before retreating again. Other places barely notice the shift. It depends on the shape of the land, the depth of the water, the way the ocean basins resonate like vast bowls of sound. Resonance. That word feels musical, and it is. Each coastline has its own resonance, its own way of responding to the moon's call. Some sing back loudly in surging tides, while others hum softly in small ripples. I imagine the earth as a vast instrument, the oceans its strings. The moon plucks them gently, and the sound varies depending on the shape of the instrument. That's why the Bay of Fundy in Canada has tides that rise higher than anywhere else on Earth. The shape of the bay amplifies the pull, like a guitar body amplifying a note. And so the water there lifts and falls with astonishing drama, twice a day, every day, in answer to the moon. Here, though, on this quiet shore, the tides are gentler. They whisper instead of shout. But the song is the same. The pattern is the same. Rise, fall, pull, release. I lean back on my hands, letting the waves brush closer, and I think about how life has always listened to this rhythm. Fish time their spawning to tides. Birds gather food when the waters retreat, exposing mudflats. Even human beings, long before we named these cycles, lived by them. Fishermen studied the moon to know when to cast their nets. Farmers read the tides to guide planting near the shore. The tide wasn't just water. It was time itself. And in a way, it still is. The tide is a clock that doesn't need hands or numbers. It ticks forward not in seconds, but in swells. It marks the passing of hours with the breath of the ocean, steady and sure, never pausing, never breaking. I close my eyes and let that rhythm sink in. There's comfort in knowing that even when I sleep, the tide keeps moving. When I wake tomorrow, the moon will still be pulling, the ocean will still be answering. The world doesn't stop when I close my eyes. It carries on, soft and steady, like a friend watching over me. The water is higher now, lapping at my waist as I sit in the sand. I laugh softly to myself. It's as though the tide is coming to join me, to wrap me in its rhythm. I don't move. I just let it happen. Let the ocean fold itself around me, a reminder that I am not separate from it. I am inside its story, as much as the moon is, as much as the earth itself. Somewhere deep in the ocean, the tide stirs currents. Water rises and sinks, carrying nutrients, feeding plankton, sustaining whales. The moon's pull doesn't just shape the shoreline. It nourishes the planet. It stirs the deep, making sure life can flourish. I like to think of it as a lullaby that not only soothes, but also sustains, keeping the whole ocean alive. I tilt my head back toward the sky. The moon is brighter now, the clouds drifting away. It looks so simple, so plain, just a circle of light. But in truth, it is a partner in Earth's story, a quiet one, but essential. Without the moon, the Earth would still spin, the sun would still rise, but the tides would be smaller, life would have grown differently, and nights like this might not feel the same. I feel a swell of gratitude in my chest, not just for the ocean and the moon, but for the chance to sit here and listen. To remember that science isn't just facts. It's wonder. It's the story of why the world feels the way it does when the tide rises around your body, when the moon hangs above you, when you realize you are part of a dance older than language. The ocean sighs again, brushing against me as if to agree. The tide has crept higher, and I'm nearly floating now where I once sat firmly on the sand. The water rocks me gently, as though the ocean itself has taken on the role of storyteller, cradling me in its patient arms. I let myself lean back, half submerged, staring up at the sky where the moon still shines, steady and watchful. And something inside me softens. It's not just the science anymore. It's the memory of all the times I've stood under this same moon, unaware of the pull it was casting on the waters and on me. I think back to being a child, walking along the shore with my parents. My hands were small then, slipping into theirs as we stepped carefully across the damp sand. I didn't understand tides. I didn't even know the word. But I remember watching the waves curl over my toes and then slide back again, and I remember asking why the water moved that way. My mother said, "It's just the tide. It comes and goes." She said it as though it were the simplest thing in the world. And maybe it was. Maybe it still is. But tonight, knowing what I know now, it feels anything but simple. It feels like a secret woven into the fabric of existence, a secret I'm only now beginning to hear in full. The waves sigh against my skin. I imagine them carrying whispers, echoes of every moment the ocean has touched a human life. The moon has been pulling at this water long before I was born, and it will keep pulling long after I'm gone. And in that thought, I find both humility and peace. There's a quiet awe in realizing how small I am against this backdrop of celestial choreography. But it doesn't feel lonely. It feels like being part of something vast, something trustworthy, something that doesn't need me to understand it in order to carry me along. I think of sailors centuries ago who trusted the tides to guide their journeys. I think of poets who compared love to the ebb and flow of the sea. I think of people standing at windows all across the world right now, gazing at the same moon and perhaps feeling the same quiet tug in their hearts. The tide isn't just a scientific phenomenon. It's a mirror. It reflects something about us, our own rhythms, our own rises and falls. How many times in my life have I felt pulled by forces I couldn't see? Pulled toward dreams, toward people, toward places, without quite knowing why. The tide reminds me that unseen forces are not always frightening. Sometimes, they're the very things that give shape to our lives. I trail my hand through the water, watching the ripples spread outward. They move away from me, small at first, then wider, until they blur into the greater rhythm of the tide. It's the same with our lives, I think. Our choices, our joys, our griefs, they ripple outward, blending into a current far larger than we can see. The moonlight glints across the water, and I remember nights from my teenage years when I would lie on the roof of my house and stare at that same pale disk. Back then, the world felt too big, too heavy, and I often felt adrift. But the moon was constant. It didn't matter if my life was changing, if friendships shifted, if tomorrow seemed uncertain. The moon was always there, rising in silence, pulling the ocean with patience, reminding me that change was not chaos. Change was rhythm. Even now, as an adult, I sometimes forget. I rush, I worry, I stumble. And then I find myself at the shore again, reminded that the tide doesn't rush. The moon doesn't hurry. The water doesn't argue with gravity. It simply moves back and forth, trusting the pull. A gentle thought comes to me, almost like a whisper from the waves themselves. Maybe life is not about resisting the tides, but learning to move with them. To let the unseen pulls guide us instead of fighting against them. The water rises again, brushing higher along my chest now. The stars above shimmer faintly, and I feel suspended between two infinities, the sky above and the sea below. Both are vast, both are patient, both are alive with rhythms too large for me to fully grasp. Yet here I am, small and safe, carried in the middle. I think of every tide that has ever touched every shore. Billions upon billions of waves, each one part of the same rhythm, each one answering the same call. And I realize that in some quiet way, the ocean's song is humanity's song, too. We are not separate from it. Our bodies carry tides of their own. Our hearts beat in pulses. Our breaths rise and fall like miniature oceans. Even the blood that flows within us is pulled by the moon, just a little, just enough to remind us that we are not apart from the earth. We are of it. I smile as that thought drifts through me. The same gravity that moves oceans is moving me right now. The same moonlight that touches the sea touches my face. The same tide that carries plankton carries memories across my heart. The waves lap gently, and I close my eyes, letting the motion rock me like a cradle. The science is still there, steady and true, but around it is something softer, something almost holy. The tide is not just a force. It is a comfort. A reminder that the world is both larger and kinder than I sometimes let myself believe. I let myself sink back further until the water cradles my ears and muffles the sound of the world. All I hear now is my own breath, slow and calm, mingling with the pulse of the ocean. And in that space, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time, utter stillness, even as the tide moves all around me. The water has reached its peak. I can feel it as I sit, half floating, half rooted in the sand. The tide has risen as far as it will go for now, and in its quiet fullness, there's a sense of pause, of completion. The ocean feels content, like it has leaned as close to the moon as it can, and is now ready to rest for a while before retreating again. I let my body mirror that stillness. I stop tracing shapes in the sand. I stop wondering about the past and the future. I simply sit, held by the water, breathing with the tide. It's easy to forget that rest is part of the cycle too. Just as the tide rushes forward and then withdraws, we also rise and fall. We move through days of energy and nights of quiet. We surge with momentum and then step back into stillness. Both are necessary. Both are part of the rhythm. I tilt my head to watch the moon. Its light is softer now as a veil of cloud drifts lazily across its face. I imagine the moon tucking itself in, dimming the glow just enough to let the earth sleep a little easier. Its pull hasn't changed. The gravity is still there, steady as ever. But the mood has shifted. The night is deepening, and everything in it seems to whisper, "Slow down." The ocean begins to ease back. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the water slides away from me. The tide has reached its turning point. It's no longer rising, it's exhaling. The waves retreat an inch, then another, smoothing the sand as they go. The motion feels like a lullaby rocking me side to side, coaxing me toward dreams. I close my eyes and imagine the whole earth rocking with me. Coastlines all around the planet feeling the same shift. Harbors quieting. Mangroves breathing. Distant shores exhaling as the tide pulls away. The moon is speaking to all of us at once, and we're all answering in unison, even if we don't realize it. There's something deeply comforting about that thought, that the world itself has a rhythm of rest built into it. No matter how busy, no matter how loud our lives become, the planet itself insists on cycles of rise and retreat. It reminds us that there is time for everything, time to move forward, time to step back, time to surge, time to rest. The waves sigh again, softer now. I stretch my legs out in the water and let the coolness linger around my skin. I imagine the ocean as a vast quilt, spreading itself gently over the shore, then folding itself away again. Nothing is lost in this ebb. The sea is only changing shape, only preparing for the next return. I breathe in, slow and deep, as though my chest is another tide, rising to meet the air, then falling back into stillness. It feels natural, inevitable, as if my body has always known this rhythm and has only been waiting for me to notice. The stars above shimmer faintly, though some are fading now into the haze of deep night. I think of them as tiny reminders of distant gravity, each one a sun with its own pull, its own dance of planets and moons. The universe is full of tides, cosmic tides, invisible tides, far beyond the waves I can touch tonight. And yet the pattern is the same: pull, release, movement and return. It's everywhere. The retreating water leaves behind little pools around me, shallow mirrors that reflect fragments of the sky. I look down into one and see the moon's reflection trembling on the surface. It feels like a secret that I can look down and see the sky looking back. The ocean holds the moon twice, once above, once below. And both reflections are beautiful, both true in their own way. I rest my hand in one of the pools, disturbing the image. The moon ripples and blurs, then steadies again as the water calms. It makes me think of the way my own mind sometimes stirs with restlessness, thoughts rippling out in all directions. But with time, with stillness, everything settles. The reflection clears. The tide of thought retreats. I realize that this is what the ocean has been teaching me all along, not just about science, not just about gravity, but about calm, about how cycles hold us, about how stillness always returns. The waves continue their retreat, exposing more sand, leaving trails of foam like white lace across the shore. The sound grows quieter, a softer hush, as if the sea is whispering me to sleep. I let myself lean back completely now, lying against the damp sand, feeling the earth cradle me as the stars will slowly overhead. The night is deep, and my body is heavy with its quiet. I no longer feel the need to hold on to thoughts or questions. The science, the wonder, the memories, they've all braided together into something gentle, something steady, something that doesn't need words anymore. I listen one last time to the rhythm of the tide, the rise and fall that has always been here, that will always be here. And as I breathe with it, I feel myself drifting closer to dreams. The tide has slipped back now, quiet as a breath taken in sleep. The shoreline glistens where the water once rested, the sand smooth and shining under the moon's soft glow. I lie still, listening to the hush of the retreat, as if the ocean is tucking itself in for the night. The moon is steady above, no longer something I study, but something I feel, like a guardian lantern hung in the dark, casting its silver path across the sea. Its pull hasn't stopped, and it never will. The ocean will keep listening, keep rising and falling, long after this night drifts into memory. And in that endless rhythm, I find comfort. I let my breath follow the pattern one last time. Inhale, like the tide coming in. Exhale, like the tide drifting out. The air feels cool and soft as it moves through me, carrying the weight of the day away. The world feels quiet now. The kind of quiet that settles deep, not just around me, but within me. The kind of quiet that feels like home. I think again of how tides have touched every life, how they've guided sailors, nourished shores, inspired poems. And now, tonight, they have guided me here, to this soft edge between waking and dreaming. The science has folded itself into story, and the story has folded itself into silence. The moon is patient. The ocean is patient. And I can be patient too. I can let myself rest. The tide will keep moving. The moon will keep pulling. The earth will keep spinning. All of it will carry on gently, without me needing to hold it. I am free to let go. I close my eyes and feel the sand beneath me, cool and steady, as though the earth itself is a pillow cradling me to sleep. The waves are faint now, a distant hum, like the softest lullaby. In the rhythm of the ocean, in the pull of the moon, I hear the simplest truth. I am safe. I am held. I am part of something endless, something calm. And with that thought, I drift.